I read a story about a guy who was shopping at Costco recently who said, I see this guy with one of those flat carts, and is piled high, I mean really piled high, with toilet paper, paper towels, even boxes of hand sanitizer, everyday essentials that all of us need. I watched him and I paced up and down the aisle. I'm pretty sure my face was getting red, and I just kept getting more and more frustrated that someone would take all of this for themselves. I couldn't let it go any longer. I had had enough. So I get a hold of this guy and I tell him, what are you doing? If you wouldn't hoard so much, the rest of us would be better off. Why are you being so selfish? I let him have it up one side and down the other, and finally I ran out of steam, and he politely responded, are you through? I nodded my head, because I really need to get back to restocking these shelves. Okay. Fair enough. No more laugh track. One day, and I do hope it's soon, we'll all be looking in our rearview mirrors at the COVID-19 pandemic. Maybe enough time has gone by down the road where we'll remember, perhaps with at least a little humor, social distancing, homemade Purell, toilet paper hoarding. One definition of humor is tragedy plus time. We're in the middle of tragedy. Sickness, deaths, jobs, the economy, the stock market. It's too early in the tragedy to really find much humor. Well, except for maybe the toilet paper hoarding of all things. But we can take comfort in the fact that someday this crisis will be a moment in history. Our world is upside down. Our kids are home from school. Many of us are home from work. Too many of us are laid off from work. There are no dine-in restaurants, no sports, no movies, no plays, no concerts, no gathering, no distractions. I was home Friday for just a little bit in the afternoon, and Lydia goes, Dakota is so bored. This is the beginning of a very long ordeal. The normal is missing from our current reality. Who would have thought a month ago that we would be gathered, sharing worship online while isolated in our homes? No one. It would have been unthinkable. With all the recent changes and restrictions, it's easy to forget that we're still in the middle of Lent. And so many without choice have given up so much more for Lent than we ever would have imagined. Easter's coming. Easter changed everything. The resurrection of Jesus turned the world upside down. Now this morning, I would like to spend a few minutes talking about Mary of Bethany and her over-the-top gift that touched the heart of Jesus.
It came with specific instructions. Use it wisely. My grandmother said, it is only for the most special occasion. It had been a gift from her mother, who told her the same thing. Only for the most special occasion. I held it for years, not knowing what could be special enough for this. Until it was 6 days before Passover. He was reclined, his feet towards me. Around him, his followers. I too was a follower. At first at a distance. But he invited us. The women, really everyone, to come near to hear his stories of God's curious kingdom. That night, I gathered my perfume from its safe hiding place. The room crowded with men. No one noticed me. Without hesitation, I broke open the lid of the bottle. The perfume drenched his feet. With a slight smile, he looked at me. And then I did something I had not planned. I covered his feet with my hair, washing them with my tears. I had no choice. He was Messiah, worthy of anointing. This was the celebration that everyone hoped for, of who we hoped for. I kept the bottle and the memory. The perfume was not wasted. He was the most special occasion.
Nobody can turn things upside down like Jesus. Normal was challenged, yet again by Jesus at a dinner party where his disciples and some others were simply enjoying a meal. What Jesus did in response to Mary's gift upset the room, the culture, and it still challenges us. This was a seismic, upside-down moment in that day, in that time, and in that culture. This morning, I'm looking at the encounter that Mary of Bethany had with Jesus, as found in John 12, 1 through 8. This story is also recorded in Matthew 26, 6 through 13, and Mark 14, 3 through 9. These versions have a little different twist on the story. For today, I'll focus on how John described this event in his gospel. If you have your Bibles or your apps with you there at home, follow along. It'll also be on the screen. John 12, 1 through 8, and I'll be reading out of the New Living Testament. 6 days before the Passover celebration began, Jesus arrived in Bethany, the home of Lazarus, the man he had raised from the dead. A dinner was prepared in Jesus' honor. Martha served, and Lazarus was among those who ate with him. Then Mary took a 12-ounce jar of expensive perfume made from the essence of nard, and she anointed Jesus' feet with it, wiping his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance. But Judas Iscariot, the disciple who would soon betray him, said, "That perfume was worth a year's wages. It should have been sold and the money given to the poor." Not that he really cared about the poor. He was a thief. And since he was in charge of the disciples' money, he often stole some for himself. Verse 7, Jesus replied, "Leave her alone. She did this in preparation for my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me." Lord, thank you again for your word. Let it percolate into our spirit and change us from the inside out, I pray this morning. Amen. Mary was the sister of Martha and Lazarus. The family lived in Bethany, just about 2 miles from Jerusalem. Mary listened to Jesus. She really listened to Jesus when he taught. The spiritual practice of listening to Jesus has been a reoccurring theme for the last several months if you've been around Renton Nazarene for very long. How are you doing on listening to Jesus? Martha, Mary's sister, had a tough time listening. She was a doer. She was always busy. Jesus didn't criticize her for her busyness, but he challenged Martha not to judge Mary for listening, for taking the time to learn, for desiring connection. Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42 describes an earlier dinner with these friends together. Luke chapter 10, 38 through 42. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, "Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come help me." But the Lord said to her, My dear Martha, you are upset and worried about all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. Jesus said there's only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary discovered it. Have you? One thing worth being concerned about. It seems to me we're concerned about everything. Often anything and everything except for the one thing, except for this sitting at the very feet of Jesus. I don't know about you, but life has turned upside down. I'm not sure there's any better excuse than what we have to spend some time at the feet of Jesus. Now, the dinner recorded in John 12:1-8 described Martha serving and Mary listening. This dinner was a chance to celebrate the miracle of Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. That's a pretty big deal, especially for Lazarus. But not the point of this message. This message is about a follower of Jesus who listened at his feet and who offered her life. In a moment of extravagant and unbridled devotion, Mary poured out her most valuable possession onto the feet of Jesus and dried his feet with her hair. This act of devotion disrupted the dinner. Angry words were launched, motives questioned, and once again, Jesus stepped into an upside-down situation with perspective and praise for this one who loved him without bounds. Mary's upside-down extravagant gift was offered during a time when women did not let their hair down in public. To do this, to put your hair down in public, would have been indecent in mixed company. When Mary anointed Jesus with her precious ointment and let her hair down, it would have caused those in the room to gasp in awkward silence until the words of judgment could be formed and spewed. Jesus came to Mary's defense. He always comes to the defense of those who serve him and love him with pure devotion. He rebuked his disciples and made sure they all knew what was going to happen, what was good, right, and appropriate. Mary was vulnerably serving Jesus. Mary and Jesus both turned everything in that moment upside down with their actions and his words. What does this have to do with us? Mary worshiped Jesus with what she had. She worshiped Jesus with everything that she had. And it touched the heart of Jesus. Judas was upset about this waste. The perfume was worth a year's wages. Isn't that like $200,000+ for a normal Amazon worker? I think I read that somewhere. Not sure if it's true. But Jesus didn't view this as a waste. No. He viewed it as an act of devotion, of sacrifice, of love. Jesus desires our devotion. What we have to offer is not the issue. Jesus wants us to offer who we are and release what we have. It's more of him and less of us. Mary's heart found a way to worship Jesus, and her devotion shocked and challenged everyone around her. How are we going to worship? Seek Jesus, grow in faith, grow together in this time of isolation. What are we doing to be kingdom builders while we are being asked to isolate? What do you have to offer as a gift, as a sacrifice to Jesus? Normal is over. Yeah, there will be a new normal. Every time life is significantly disrupted, there will be a new normal that replaces it. But make no mistake, what we've known has changed. We are living in the upside down. But we serve a God who not only created this world, but is good with the upside down. He gives peace and purpose in the middle of change. What I sent out this past Friday in an email is appropriate today. The COVID-19 virus, with the mantra of social distancing, has the potential of uniting our world. All nations are working towards a singular goal to beat this virus. And neighbors are having more and more over-the-fence conversation. Strangers are helping strangers, and the door is open for conversation. Many are discovering that unity is what we share in common is more powerful than our disagreements. Love is more powerful than hate. What if this seismic disruption is used by God through us, His church, to bring peace, share hope, and open doors for transformational faith? The church may never be the same. With Christ in us, it may be better. This is His church. You are His church. We have the chance to be exactly what God has called us to be. The church is not a building, but a people of love, a people of hope, a people of life and purpose. Life in Jesus is good news. The gospel. I pray that each of you will find sacred space in your home and in the rhythms of your lives as this virus is forcing us to slow down, forcing us to linger, reflect, seek. Learn to creatively connect, lean into Jesus. Give yourselves away, even at a distance. Give yourselves away. This too is a spiritual act of worship. Such acts of intentionality may just turn our lives and homes upside down this Easter season. Even in the middle of chaos, God is at work. And He can bring to all of us and our world a sense of peace. We can draw near to God. Man, Jesus, I pray that you will work. I pray that in every home that is worshiping this morning, regardless of how they're worshiping, but every home that is worshiping you, I pray for your blessing, for your peace, for your purpose. I lift up this church. I lift up Renton Church of the Nazarene, and I pray that you will continue to shape us into what you've created us to be, what you desire. I pray that we can love each other and help each other through this crisis. I pray for our community. I pray for our city. I pray for our country, and I pray for the world that you will have your way. And in the middle of this tragedy, in the middle of this crisis, there will be hope. There will be conversation. That there will be seeking, and that it will be centered around you. Lord, we need you, and we desire you. And I pray for your Spirit to be poured out and to work through all of us. And I ask this in your name. Amen.